Introduction. There is one question that has fascinated humanity for thousands of years. Why is it that the Jewish people, who make up less than 0.2% of the world's population, have risen to dominate almost every backbone industry of the modern world? From banking, oil, media, and the internet, to artificial intelligence. Why is it that a people once rejected, enslaved, ridiculed, and even pushed to the brink of extinction could rise again with such strength, not only surviving, but thriving, becoming wealthier, more prosperous, and more influential than anyone else? This is not only a story of history, it is also a lesson in personal finance for every one of us today. In this video, we are going to uncover the secrets of Jewish wealth that have astonished the entire world. It was never luck. It was never a miracle falling from the sky. It is the result of a process built over thousands of years, through mindset, through discipline, through knowledge, and through an extraordinary ability to adapt. And perhaps, after watching this video, you may find your own path toward financial freedom. When we think of Jewish people, many of us immediately recall names like Albert Einstein, who revolutionized modern physics, or Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, a network that connects billions of people, or the powerful banking families like the Rothschilds and Goldman Sachs, names that shaped the global financial system itself. What do they all have in common? They are Jewish. But if you think their wealth comes only from natural intelligence, then you are missing the most important truth. That wealth was not built overnight. It was the product of a culture that values knowledge above everything else. It was the product of centuries of persecution, when they were forced to leave their land, to abandon property until only one thing remained, something no enemy could ever steal. That one thing was wisdom. Imagine a people exiled across the world with no permanent homeland, no fixed assets, and in many periods of history, even forbidden to own land. When you cannot possess physical wealth, you must learn to own intangible wealth. And for the Jewish people, that intangible wealth was knowledge and skills. From there, they became merchants, lenders, traders, and eventually the titans of global finance. As we open today's video, I want you to keep one image in your mind. Jewish wealth was never the result of fortune. It was the result of vision, of financial discipline, and of repeating small, steady principles over centuries. And we too, as ordinary people, can learn from them. We may never become Rothschilds, never become Zuckerbergs, never found Google, nor control Wall Street. But we can learn how Jewish families teach their children about money. We can learn how they turn small savings into massive wealth through compound interest. We can learn how to make money work for us instead of forever trading our labor for wages. On this journey, we will go through 4 essential parts. First, we will travel back in time to understand the pain of history that shaped the Jewish spirit. Second, we will uncover the timeless financial principles they have practiced for thousands of years. Third, we will see how they rose from the tragedy of the 20th century to become the very center of global financial power. And fourth, we will look at the astonishing wealth of Jewish people today and examine exactly how they preserve and grow it across generations. And in the end, I will leave you with one question. We, who live in the 21st century, can we learn something from the Jewish financial circle? A circle that begins with saving, grows through wise investing, leads to financial freedom, builds passive income, multiplies through compound growth, and finally is passed down to the next generation. This is not only a story of one people, it could be your story too. If you begin today, begin with saving. Now, let us start our journey with part 1.
Part 1. A Painful History. The Foundation of Strength. The Jewish people did not begin with wealth. They began with exile, rejection, and scars that never fully healed. Yet it was from this suffering that they discovered the strength to rise. When we look back at human history, few communities have endured as many upheavals as the Jews. In the Bible, they once had their own kingdom, their own temple in Jerusalem, and a brilliant cultural heritage. But powerful empires such as Babylon and Rome conquered and destroyed it all. The Jewish people were exiled, enslaved, and stripped of their homeland. From that moment, they became a wandering nation, scattered across the world. For centuries, Jews were forbidden to own land in the places they settled. They were excluded from many professions. These restrictions forced them to turn to occupations that did not depend on land: trading, small crafts, petty commerce, and eventually lending. Over time, what seemed like marginal professions opened the door for them to accumulate knowledge of trade, finance, and the management of money. To be despised became a constant in Jewish life during the Middle Ages. They were often branded with heavy prejudice, even accused of being usurers. Yet this very hostility forced them to be cautious with every financial decision. When you live in an environment filled with risk, you learn to calculate, to hedge, and to always prepare for sudden shocks. This became the root of Jewish expertise in risk management, a skill that still defines their approach to business and finance. But prejudice was not their only challenge. The Jews endured brutal waves of persecution. For centuries, they were expelled from European kingdoms, tens of thousands driven out of England, France, Spain. In many places, their property was confiscated, and their lives were constantly threatened. In the 20th century, the Holocaust took the lives of 6 million Jews, leaving the deepest wound in human history. And yet, the miracle is this: these tragedies did not destroy them. Instead, they forged an inner strength few peoples have ever known. When every form of physical wealth could be stolen, the Jews discovered the one asset no one could ever take away: knowledge. And so they chose to invest in knowledge. They made education the foundation of survival. They taught financial thinking and business skills to their children from a very young age. Learning itself became the thread that bound their community together. In many Jewish families, children are taught from the beginning that money can be lost, but knowledge never disappears. That is why education is seen as the #1 investment. And because of that philosophy, by the 19th and 20th centuries, Jews had risen as doctors, lawyers, scientists, and of course, financial magnates. Look at the reality. Countless Jewish billionaires today trace their roots back to poor immigrant families. Their grandparents may have been small traders in European markets, yet by valuing knowledge, they laid the foundation for future generations to enter universities, to enter business, and to become global entrepreneurs. History's pain also taught the Jews another priceless lesson: solidarity. Within their small community, they always supported one another. If one family faced hardship, others would step in. If one person started a business, the community would buy, support, and create opportunities. This internal support became a form of social capital, a hidden wealth that allowed them to compete in a world filled with injustice. In other words, history itself forged a formula. Forbidden from owning land, they learned to build an economy on knowledge. Despised by others, they learned to calculate with precision. Oppressed, they learned the power of unity. Exiled, they learned how to adapt to any environment. All of these lessons combined to form the bedrock of their later success. But a foundation alone is not enough. A house only stands strong with a clear design and a strategy. The Jews did not stop at survival. They created a complete system of financial principles, passed down from generation to generation. And it is precisely these principles that turn them into the gatekeepers of wealth. This is the truth few ever speak about. The Jews did not simply inherit riches. They moved from pain to ambition, from loss to knowledge, from fear to survival strategies. And to truly understand the financial secrets that have astonished the world, we must move forward to Part 2, where the timeless principles of Jewish finance will be revealed.
Part 2. The Timeless Financial Principles. If you believe that Jewish wealth is only a matter of luck, you are mistaken. Behind it lies an entire system of financial principles refined over thousands of years, passed down from father to son, from one generation to the next. The first lesson Jewish parents teach their children is the value of money. In Jewish families, financial education begins very early. From the moment a child can read, parents expose them to stories of business, examples of saving, and even serious family conversations about money. There is no hiding financial matters from children. On the contrary, parents see it as a lesson of survival. The first principle is this: money is not only for spending, it must work for you. This is the core difference from the majority of people. When they hold money in their hands, Jews do not rush to shop or satisfy desires. They immediately think about how that money can generate profit, even the smallest return. This mindset, investing instead of spending, creates a long-term cycle of wealth accumulation. The second principle: never put all your eggs in one basket. For centuries, Jews suffered asset confiscation. They learned the hard lesson that concentrating everything in one place could mean losing everything overnight. This is why they always spread risk. They invested in diverse fields: trade, banking, real estate, art, education, and today, high technology. Because of this diversification, even when one sector collapses, they still stand strong in others. The third principle: respect the value of time. Jews understood that time is the most precious asset. They embraced the power of compound interest very early. They taught their children that if you save and invest early, time will multiply your wealth. Instead of waiting for one big opportunity, they persistently pursued small but certain opportunities. The fourth principle: knowledge is more important than money. To them, money can be stolen, but knowledge cannot. That is why they devote a significant portion of their wealth to education. Jewish children are encouraged to study as far as possible. Even poor families are willing to sell valuable possessions to pay for university. And through that knowledge, the next generation can create wealth many times greater. The fifth principle: integrity in business. As a small community, Jews understood that losing trust meant losing all opportunities. That is why credibility in transactions was always their highest priority. This is one reason Jewish banks and financial companies have lasted for centuries and continue to earn trust. The sixth principle: failure is a lesson, not an end. With a history full of upheavals, Jews knew failure was inevitable. But instead of despair, they saw it as the cost of education. A failed deal was simply the price of buying more experience. They taught their children how to rise again, how to analyze mistakes, and how never to repeat them. The seventh principle: generosity and giving. In Jewish culture, charity is not optional, it is a duty. Everyone is encouraged to give a portion of their income to the community, to education, to those less fortunate. This created a cycle of goodwill. The poor were lifted up, while the wealthy strengthened their influence. Looking back, we can see these principles are not abstract theories, but practical steps. What makes them unique is that Jews turned them into culture, into habits of daily life, passed down from generation to generation. This is why their wealth is not temporary, it is sustainable. Think about it. If a child learns to save at 10, to invest at 15, to build a career at 20, and to create passive income by 30, where will that person stand at 40 or 50? That is the Jewish way of building lasting wealth.
But financial principles are only part of the story. To understand why Jews rose to dominate the backbone industries of the modern world, banking, oil, the internet, and even artificial intelligence, we must move to part 3. There you will see how they transformed knowledge and finance into economic power that astonished the entire world.
Part 3. From Genocide to Global Power. The Jewish people were once among the most despised, enslaved, and persecuted communities in history. They endured centuries of exile and, at the darkest moment, faced the horror of the Holocaust, where over 6 million Jews were murdered by the Nazis. For most nations, such tragedy would have meant the end. But for the Jewish people, it became the turning point. Out of the ashes, they rose. They understood a truth that shaped their destiny. Material possessions can be taken away, but knowledge, unity, and financial wisdom can never be stolen. These became their guiding torch through centuries of adversity. After World War II, the Jewish diaspora found itself without a homeland, without an army, and without resources. Yet they possessed something far more powerful: intellect and financial acumen refined through generations of struggle. They knew survival meant becoming indispensable within the global economy. And they succeeded. Jewish families quickly gained influence in the backbone industries of modern civilization. Banking and finance were their foundation, with names like Rothschild, Goldman Sachs, and Lehman Brothers shaping the flow of capital across Europe and America. These dynasties did not simply manage money, they influenced governments and shifted the balance of world politics. They then moved into oil, the resource that defined the 20th century. Through networks of companies and strategic alliances stretching from the Middle East to the United States, they transformed oil into an instrument of power. As the world entered the age of mass media, Jewish visionaries built Hollywood. Film studios under their leadership did more than entertain. They shaped culture, values, and the imagination of billions. Once again, their strength lay not only in wealth, but in controlling the flow of ideas and information. Today, in the age of technology, Jewish innovation still leads. From Silicon Valley giants to artificial intelligence pioneers, many of the tools you use every day are rooted in Jewish ingenuity. Israel, though small in size, is known as the startup nation, boasting one of the highest ratios of high-tech companies to population in the world. The remarkable truth is this: from a people nearly erased, the Jews rebuilt themselves into a global center of power. They now stand at the heart of banking, energy, internet, media, and artificial intelligence, industries that shape the modern world. What sets them apart is their ability to transform crisis into opportunity. Every exile taught them adaptability. Every confiscation taught them risk diversification. Every persecution strengthened their commitment to knowledge. Every genocide became a lesson passed to the next generation, never to be forgotten. This is why the Jewish people, once on the brink of annihilation, became a symbol of resilience and success. But economic power and global influence are only the visible surface. Beneath lies something more profound, a financial cycle passed down from generation to generation that fuels their astonishing wealth. In the next chapter, we will uncover the real secret behind the enduring prosperity of the Jewish people. Part 4. The Jewish People Today, from Technology to Enormous Wealth. Today, when we talk about global wealth and power, we cannot overlook the Jewish people. They are present everywhere, from Wall Street to Silicon Valley, from Hollywood to leading AI corporations. And the most astonishing part of this story is that everything they have achieved rests on a clear foundation built and refined over generations. First, let us look at their presence in the world's backbone industries. Banking and finance remain at the core. Jewish financial dynasties have built international banking systems that shape the world's largest transactions. From government loans to trillion-dollar investment funds, the Jewish influence is unmistakable. But it does not end with finance. They expanded into oil. In the 20th century, when oil was considered black gold, Jewish entrepreneurs became key figures in extracting, trading, and controlling this vital resource. Through oil, they gained not only wealth, but also political influence. As the world entered the digital era, the Jewish people adapted immediately. The internet, information technology, artificial intelligence all bear their imprint. Countless Jewish startups grew into billion-dollar unicorns, creating products and services used across the globe. Israel, though small in size and population, has earned the title the Startup Nation, with one of the highest concentrations of high-tech companies in the world. In particular, in the field of artificial intelligence, the Jewish presence is undeniable. From machine learning algorithms to applications in medicine, defense, and finance, Jewish scientists and entrepreneurs are helping shape the future. When humanity speaks of the technological revolution, their contributions cannot be ignored. It is clear, in finance, technology, oil, and media, the Jewish people do not simply participate, they lead. They do not wait for the future, they create it. Yet their true secret lies not only in dominating strategic industries, but in the way they accumulate and transfer wealth across generations. The wealth of the Jewish people today is not the result of chance. It is the outcome of a disciplined process, sustained over centuries. Imagine the financial circle they have built. From childhood, a Jewish child is taught the value of saving. Every coin is not for spending, but for learning how to manage money. As they grow, they begin to invest, guided by the principles of risk diversification and long-term patience. They do not rely on luck. They build systems where money works for them. Passive income is not a foreign idea. Real estate, stocks, startups, all are vehicles to create steady cash flow even while they sleep. Combined with compound interest over decades, the result is nothing short of extraordinary. A single coin saved today, if invested wisely and patiently over 30 or 40 years, can grow into vast wealth. And when this principle is passed from father to son, from grandparents to grandchildren, wealth does not just multiply, it becomes a solid foundation for the entire community. This explains why so many Jewish individuals are counted among the richest people on earth. But their wealth is not born of luck. It is the product of discipline, financial intelligence, and a culture that looks beyond the span of one lifetime. And so the real question for us is, can we learn from this financial circle? Can we begin with the smallest steps, saving, investing, staying patient, so that one day our children and grandchildren will reap the rewards? The Jewish people have shown us that wealth never falls from the sky. It is the result of long-term vision and iron discipline. And this takes us to the final part of our journey, where we will reflect on this extraordinary story and ask ourselves, can you, can I, can we follow the same path?
Conclusion: Lessons from the Jewish Financial Circle. After walking through the history and financial journey of the Jewish people, you might be asking yourself, what secret allowed them, once a people despised and nearly destroyed, to rise and become one of the wealthiest and most powerful communities in the world today? Looking back, we see a clear pattern. The Jewish people endured thousands of years of hardship, from slavery in Egypt to persecution under the Romans, to the devastating Holocaust of the 20th century. Yet instead of collapsing, they chose to rise. They turned pain into strength, adversity into motivation, and the hatred of others into a burning desire to prove themselves. Their success was never about miracles. It was about mindset and action. The Jewish people understood that wealth can be taken, but knowledge and discipline cannot. They began with small but enduring principles: saving, investing, being patient, spreading risk, respecting compound interest, building passive income, and above all, passing this wisdom on to the next generation. This is what we call the Jewish Financial Circle, a closed loop of power: learning, saving, investing, creating passive income, multiplying through compounding, and transferring everything to the next generation. This circle does not just create wealth for an individual, but for a community, and ultimately for an entire people. Never forget, Jewish wealth did not fall from the sky. It was not luck. It was not sudden opportunity. It was the result of centuries of discipline, accumulation, and vision. That is what carried them from being rejected outsiders to the very center of global economic and technological power. And now, the question turns to you. Are you willing to begin your own financial circle today? Are you ready to plant small seeds through saving and investing so that one day your children and grandchildren will harvest the rewards? Do you have the patience to see beyond your own lifetime, to change the future of your family and generations to come? The Jewish people have proven that wealth is not the privilege of one nation. It is the result of knowledge, discipline, and patience. If you apply these principles, you too can start your own journey toward financial freedom. You can make money work for you. You can build streams of passive income that sustain your dreams. You can harness the quiet power of compound interest to achieve lasting prosperity. Do not wait for a miracle. Do not think you need the perfect starting point. The Jewish people began with nothing, sometimes even less than nothing, cast out and rejected. But they had faith, discipline, and determination. That is what you and I can learn from. The Jewish story is living proof of the power of the financial circle. It shows that when you save wisely, invest intelligently, build passive income, and let compounding do its work, you can create sustainable wealth. And when you pass these values on, you transform wealth into legacy, into strength, into pride. If you found these lessons from the Jewish people inspiring and useful for your own financial journey, make sure to like this video, subscribe so you don't miss the next ones, and share it so more people can benefit. Together, we will continue exploring financial secrets and inspirational stories, walking side by side on the path toward financial freedom. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next video.